My name is Leonard Clausen. I'm one of the pastors on staff at King Road Church here in Abbotsford. I have been on staff here for 16 years in two different stints, one as a youth pastor and one as an associate. Well, first of all, when I came there, I sort of shared the reality and laid sort of my burdens out, if I can use that language. And I remember very distinctly him looking at me and saying, "You're not the first person in my office to deal with this. You're not the first pastor in my office to deal with this. We will get through this together. And so for the first 2 weeks now, I want you to do nothing but rest. Don't think about it. And I'm writing you a note. You'll be off work for 3 months." I didn't believe him. And so I figured, okay, I'm going to rest for a week or two, and then we'll go right back to it, and we'll be okay. At the same time, I started seeing my doctor regularly. I also started seeing a counselor. My care really was facilitated during this time by my family physician, by my counselor, and by our senior pastor. And I was fortunate to get matched up with a counselor who has a ministry background as well. And one of the big things that I still think of often that he's helped me work at for myself was to think about the difference between a concern and an obligation. And so when I look at that, he helped me understand that, at the end of the day, you have very few obligations. You have an obligation to your family, to your employer for the basics of your work, but your obligation isn't to fix someone. And to be able to sort of step back a little bit has really helped me in terms of my walking with people to actually take those heavy stories home but not let them be overbearing. People sometimes ask me, are you better? You want to say, yes, I'm better. But I think it took me some time to come to the realization that I will never be better in the sense of I will be back where I was 3.5 years ago. Nor do I ever want to be there. In some ways, I feel much more relaxed and less formal even in my relationship with God. I heard someone say once, the older you get, the less things you care about, but the things you care about more deeply. I have to admit I'm in my 40s now, and in some ways I feel I'm finally starting to grasp some of these things. You realize that some of the peripheral things don't matter as much. It doesn't really matter if I am right or not. What matters is the sense of joy and peace and contentment that God brings, despite still struggling with anxious thoughts and anxieties and having to deal with those things. But that's part, I think, of maturing. I think my observation is over the last years that there's been much more public acknowledgement of mental health issues. You think of some of the famous athletes in particular. You think of Mind Check that the Canucks are involved in because of Rick Rippon. You think of, I think it's Clara Hughes and Bell Let's Talk. It's sometimes the church can be a little slow on the draw at times in terms of keeping up with what's going on. But I think we as a church have something to offer that, stats don't lie. We have people in our church who struggle with mental health, and yet most of them are committed to taking one step at a time and keeping on working. And for that, we need each other. And so I guess bottom line is, don't feel you're alone. Find someone to talk to, and it's okay to be brutally honest with God.